New rumors are coming out about potential Montreal Canadiens free agency signings and trades in the offseason with some huge names, including Jake DeBrusk, Kaapo Kakko, Alexander Holtz, and many, many more. Even Jack Quinn from the Buffalo Sabres. There's a lot that we got to get into. Plus, we're going to touch a little bit maybe on the Maple Leafs and also on how one guy that some people have as a potential Habs target is really showing out at the under 18. So you're going to want to stick around for all of that coming up on this live episode of Habs Digest. Welcome everyone to our weekly live stream. Hello, all 75 of you here already. Hope you can hear us well. I think you can. I think it's all good. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Zachary, what's up, boys? Listen on the drive home. Thank you, Zachary. David Darcy, hello again from Ireland. We got people from all over the world. We got so Toronto's golfing Wednesday, right? We'll probably be covering that when we get to it. But Jesse, let's avoid the Toronto talk for now. But let's get right into what we want to talk about. And that is some of these players that might be available for the Habs. We're going to start with an article from TV Sport. They said, could there be another Kirby, Dach, or Alex Newhook on the market this summer for forwards that the Habs could look for? Hey, there's some options. And the first one I wanted to bring up was Kaapo Kakko. And he said, this is a lot of French, but basically, talking about Kaapo Kakko, he's okay, but he has that link to Jeff Gorton in the Rangers, and he had like a special talent. He was the second overall pick, and if we look at his stats, 10 goals in his rookie season, 18 goals, 40 points in 82 games last year, had a down year this year, but a lot of people say he's just that little bit away from being unlocked. Jesse, there's a lot of players we're going to get into, and I'm sure a lot of the fans are going to see it as well, but what are your thoughts on Kaapo Kakko in general? Do you think that he could be a nice fit for the Habs to go after?
Well, it's not a player that we should write off, right? Not quite yet. We see it is a little bit worrisome where you're seeing, getting the 40 points and then obviously a big drop off this year. But at the same time, right, it's kind of normal with players when they're growing, when they're developing to kind of take a couple steps forward and take a step back. Now, this is a big one for sure, but, I don't think that this is a player that you could just completely write off. I think there's a very high likelihood that he could really be a big contributor at the NHL level. I don't know. For me, I don't know if he fits into that established young player, because we know Kent Hughes, that's the two things he said he was going for the most. Young, definitely, the talent, the skill is there, the connections to Jeff Gorton, you have to feel like Marty could maybe help, but at the same time, I just don't know if he's really established himself quite enough now to really get himself a seat, as Marty likes to say.
I think with guys like Kaapo Kakko, and there's a lot of them around the league, you have that hope, right? Like in Marty's system, he could really maybe explode, like Joel's Matrix says in the chat, in Montreal. You never know which guys might be able to take off in this system. But you want a guy that's already established, like they said, right? And, well, you know what? Speaking of established, Jay, thank you so much for starting us off with a super chat so early. Jay Fallodo says, Jake DeBrusk. I promise you, Jay, we will be getting into Jake DeBrusk in just a bit. I know a lot of people like Jake DeBrusk. I promise you we'll return to that. That's actually in the next article, so you'll want to stick around for that. But we'll remember this. We'll give this a heart. Give a shout out to Jay for donating so early in the stream. Thank you very much. Jake DeBrusk is a very interesting topic. But you're very right, Jesse. I think you're looking for someone a little more established. And so we're going to move on from Kakko. There's too many guys we got to get into in this video. And what I'm going to do is something that we've never really done before. I'm going to try a new little overlay. Let us know how you like this. But here is us with a little web overlay. And here is the article from TV Sport. Full credit to them. So I'm actually, I'll put the link in the chat so you guys can follow along here. There we go. You get a little inside look under what the YouTube screen looks like. So, Jack Quinn, Jesse. This guy intrigues me. I really don't know a whole lot about Jack Quinn. At least I didn't before looking at him right before we started to record. And I knew a bit. I knew he was good. He had a lot of pedigree. But he is in a Buffalo system, as they say in this article, with a lot of forwards. They have a lot of forwards. They're going to need to trade some sooner or later. Now, I can only imagine that Jack Quinn is going to be one of these guys that they want to keep forever. And if we take a look at his Hockey DB page here, he's turning 23 in September. He's not very old. He had 19 points in 27 games this season, Jesse. A bit of injury trouble as well. This is pretty close to established. A 37-point season followed by a 19-point in 27 game. That's like a 60-ish point pace. Is that someone that you would maybe consider as more established when you're looking at that kind of talented player to bring in? He's 6'1" as well.
This is an interesting notion for sure because it kind of fits as well, right? Where we need to find that trade partner where they're looking for help on defense, we're looking for the forward, and the Buffalo Sabres are especially that, especially with right-handed D. You know, we definitely have a couple, maybe a Justin Barron that we could kind of dangle there. And I'm not saying to give up on these young players too early, right? But there is definitely that skill there. You know, we're looking at like his 14 goals in basically his first year in the NHL. That's going to turn some heads right there. You have to feel like there's definitely some skill, you know? So I think that this is, you know, again, I'm picky when I'm trying to find out our next player for the top six, but I think this is a player that you have to kind of consider as part of the conversation.
Yeah, I think so too. I think he's just really good, but I don't think Buffalo is going to give him up. And again, like there's still some question marks with him. As Jesse, we got another super chat. This is going to seem a little delayed to you guys. I think we're running this on a little lower delay. Or I guess bigger delay than normal. Thank you, Radaz. Patrik Laine with a little salary retention. All right, well, let's get into that, Jesse, as I read some other chats from our channel members. Denis Ranger is in here as well. Thank you so much for your support, Denis. Hello, gang. No way, Kako Kaput. No, I guess he doesn't like him. Philippe Letang Poirier, Huberdeau, Gomez 2.0. Let's go. I mean, look, Huberdeau is, yeah, I mean, I think Huberdeau's better than Gomez, but, like I think someone said there in the chat, but hey, Gomez, threw up in your mouth a little bit, says Rock Jezak. But yeah, Radaz, Patrik Laine with a little salary retention. Jesse, that is definitely an established player. I know Laine's going through some personal stuff now. He's in the player assistance program, a lot of stuff like that. But if he comes back healthy and he comes back in a good mind space, I know there have been some questions about his effort maybe in the past. Is that the kind of guy that you think could fit this Habs team? I mean, he's still younger than I think people realize, and he has that like top goal scoring potential.
In an ideal world, I would love that, but it's hard to really see that at this point in time, right? But this is a player that I've liked for a really long time. Obviously, the talent, the shot is just absolutely unreal. And I was following him quite a bit, you know, early on in his career. And I was kind of wondering to myself, like, okay, is he going to end up being better than Matthews, right? That was the whole conversation. Who should have went ahead of who at the draft, right? I think for a long time, he was really there, and rightfully so, you know, just like silky minutes can just score those beautiful goals, right? I think he's the type of player in terms of the level of skill. It just seems like Montreal, just they want their cake and they want to eat it too, right? They want the skill, but they also want somebody who they feel is going to be good in playoffs, that's going to feel like they're going to kind of compete every night. So it seems like they're just asking the world. I know it's a big ask, but I guess I'm not the only one being picky right now too. Kent Hughes, he's really choosing, you know, which player he really wants to add next very carefully. But for the skill type of level, absolutely, this is the type of player I believe we should be talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he is that kind of established guy, and if they can work something out, maybe. I mean, there's so many question marks involved on Laine's end, on you know, various teams' ends to make that work. But hey, I guess it's not impossible. Great, thank you for the super chat, Radaz. Really appreciate it. And hey, I see Joel's Matrix in there saying, guys, hit that thumbs up button. Well, I mean, I wasn't going to ask. Yes, I was. Thank you for reminding me. Let's hit like on this stream. We don't have as many likes as we should for 215 people in here. I want to see that get to 100 likes. I know you guys love to see numbers go up. What is more satisfying, Jesse, than clicking a button on a screen and seeing a number go up? Absolutely nothing. I'm telling you. That's what so many games are basically based around these days, right? So if you could do it, thank you very much. I see Philip Letang Poirier says, Pacioretty has the heart and soul. He fits the Leafs, or has no heart and soul. He fits the Leafs perfectly. I read that wrong the first time. Yeah, I don't want to see Pacioretty back in Montreal, to be honest. That ended sourly. He was a good player. We'll leave it at that. He got a Suzuki. Let's just stick with Suzuki. But Jesse, we're going to move on to a player that I know you're particularly fond of, and I wanted to bring this up as well. And that's Alexander Holtz. Now, Alexander Holtz, 7th pick in the 2020 draft, just ahead of Jack Quinn. And when he was drafted, he was basically an elite level shooter. That's what we were saying. I'm going to bring up his Hockey DB page as well. Alex Holtz. Hopefully it comes up. There he is there. 16 goals, 28 points in 82 games this year. Jesse is a 22-year-old. This was his age 22 season because he turned 22 before January 31st. That production at the NHL level is still not quite there. 28 points in 82 games, of course. But this dude has a rocket of a shot. 26 goals in the AHL 2 years ago at the age of 20 is something really special. Alex Holtz is maybe a bit more of that proven status for you, but the thing with him is that he fits so well. A heavy shooting, one of the better shots, and one of the harder shots in the league, really, when he gets his opportunities. Right-hand shot, right wing, 6 feet tall, almost 200 pounds. I know you really like this guy. Sell him some more.
Well, we're looking for a shooter, right? Like, we know we got Suzuki, who's an amazing setup guy. Guess who else is amazing at that? Kirby Dach, right? So he's going to be looking for a wingman to really roll with them there, right? And I think that this could be an interesting player. Like, if you look at his production here on the board, pretty good considering he wasn't playing a whole lot for Lindy Ruff, right? Like, of course, it's fair to now ask, what was his part, in not playing as much in his ice time? I know that Lindy's pretty old school, definitely he asks a lot, but you have to feel as a young player, right? You want to do everything you can to get on the right side of your coach, but the talent is there. And again, I think you bring up such a great point in all of this, Josh, is Marty St. Louis seems to be the X factors. What player do you think can work with Marty and vice versa, right? Marty, which players can he really work with, right? So I feel like he's definitely going to be giving a lot of input into which type of players he can really craft and mold and just use his amazing hockey IQ just to take him to the next level.
And yeah, that's the thing. I mean, it's so exciting, but like Holtz, out of anyone we've talked about, has maybe the one thing that the Habs need more than so far. We've talked about Jack Quinn, we talked about Kaapo Kakko, we talked about who. Alexander Holtz has that shot. It's there. And if he has the right setup, man, and if he gets the right amount of ice time and he puts in the effort, this guy could be something special, right? Like, he could be a 30-goal scorer pretty much every year if it's possible, right? If he gets that opportunity. So I think Alexander Holtz is a really interesting selection as well. Let us know so far, guys, of these three that we've talked about. And again, Jay, thank you for the super chat earlier. We will be getting into Jake DeBrusk. I promise you, I won't forget that. We will get into that. Let us know out of these three players so far, which one you'd rather. Jesse, there's one more guy. I mean, well, there's a couple more guys in this. Peyton Krebs is here as well. I don't see Buffalo getting rid of him, so I wasn't so sure. Maybe we can have some thoughts on Peyton Krebs. But the guy that I wanted to talk about is a guy that actually I've brought up before when we've talked about Cole Yzerman as guys that have maybe had that real big goal-scoring potential out of that, I think it was the USHL or whatever, Cole Yzerman. People coming out of there and not quite putting it together as much as you'd like to in the NHL. That's Arthur Kaliev. Now, Arthur Kaliev, Azerbaijan/USA, really interesting story behind Arthur Kaliev. But he is interesting because he is still young. He still plays for the LA Kings, and he has that top-tier goal-scoring potential as well. And if I bring up his HockeyDB, which I'm going to do. Oh, look at that. No typos. Pressure's on with like 300 people watching almost, and I don't make any typos. God, this deserves a like for just that alone. But if we take a look here, Jesse, I mean, Hamilton Bulldogs, 44 goals, 57 games in the OHL, absolutely insane. 14 goals in 40 games for the Ontario Reign as a 19, almost 20-year-old. But it just hasn't clicked in the NHL, right? He was picked in the second round, 33rd overall, but he's 6'2", and he has that crazy high goal scoring potential. 51 goals, followed by 44 goals in the OHL. Kaliev is an interesting case for me because he feels like someone, or sorry, I said Azerbaijan. Why did I say Azerbaijan? I meant Uzbekistan. I usually don't get countries mixed up. I said the pressure was on and I gave the wrong country. Why did I say Azerbaijan? Maybe I was thinking of Azerbaijan. We'll leave that alone. Jesse, Arthur Kaliev, is he someone that's maybe, like he has shown some flashes? He's still 22. He's 6'2". He has shown that ability, and he's a guy that LA might let go for somewhat cheap. Does he fit the bill as someone Montreal could go after? I feel like if the price is right, and I feel like for Kaliev more than anyone else that we've talked about so far, it might be the cheapest, and it might make the most sense from a pure trade perspective.
Well, I mean, just look at that mug to start off with, Josh. Can we just zoom in on that mug to start off? Right, but this guy, right? 14 and 13 goals in basically his first 2 years, in the NHL. Like, this guy, the talent is there, right? It continued from junior, and he's shown that he can do it at the NHL level. Just the big thing for me with Kaliev, again, right? He looks like a mean customer. I want to see that face on the ice. I want to see that compete. Right. And that's the one thing that's kind of missing. I'm scared. Okay. That's too big right now. No Kaliev. Yeah, no, but that's it. It's just really competing. Right. And I feel like with Montreal, that's what I like so much about what they're building right now. I know we said we wouldn't get into the Leafs right now and everything else like that, but this is what's so amazing about what the Montreal Canadiens have is players willing to compete, and we talked about before whether I would rather have like a younger Slaf or a younger Matthews on our team. I know it sounds crazy, right? But I think with what Slaf has shown us early in his career, right, is you want those competitors because those are the guys that win when it matters. The regular season is all good and well, right? But we're really looking to build a team that really does something when we get there. So I know we're talking about Jake DeBrusk a little bit later, but I think that's a little bit more the type of player we need to be going for.
You know what? Why later? Why not right now? Jay Fowler, getting back to the super chat. See, guys, super chats pay off. We talk about your subjects. Well, hey, Jake DeBrusk was also in the thumbnail, so I guess you guys kind of knew it was coming. Jake DeBrusk in a Jonathan Kovacevic jersey. Spoiler. I didn't, yeah, those jersey swaps, anyway, they take a bit of time. So, let's just get into Jake DeBrusk. Those are some good trade targets. Of course, we've talked about Marty Necas as well, some stuff like that. But let's look more into unrestricted free agent targets. Now, when we're talking about UFAs, a lot of people, including us, don't really see Montreal as making a huge splash this year simply because the UFA class is not that great this year. But that doesn't mean there's no one that they could add. Now, we know Jeff Gorton and we know Kent Hughes. They're not going to go out and sign some, a Sam Bennett to a 7-year, $10 million per year contract. That's just not going to happen, right? Because Montreal is just not in a position to give that kind of long-term contract that's going to hurt at the end. What they might be in the business of doing is getting a solid player who sticks around 3, 4, 5 years that's still really able to play good hockey to be around this team as they're making that push towards the playoffs. Denise says competition desire is better than pure talent. I think a good mix of both is true. I mean, if you don't have any talent, you're not going to make the ice anyway, but I very much get your sentiment, and that level of competitiveness, that compete, is very valuable. But Jesse, let's move on, and I think I have a picture here for this, and I do. It's Jake DeBrusk. Jake DeBrusk would be a perfect, this is from the Hockey News, by the way. They outlined 3 potential UFA targets. I see someone saying the first time catching your video live. Hey, thank you. Welcome to the stream. Every single Monday, 6:15 p.m. Eastern, we will be here. But Jesse, Jake DeBrusk. He would be a perfect addition to the Canadiens. They need more scoring, and when DeBrusk is on his game, he provides just that. The 27-year-old has hit the 20-goal mark thrice and has had at least 40 points in 5 seasons. Very true. If we take a look at his HockeyDB page, you can see he had 19 goals, 40 points this year for a very good Bruins team, 50 points last year with 27 goals. He's that kind of guy that can get you 25 to 30 goals every year if he's in the right situation with the right playmakers. Now, again, the problem with him is he turns 28 in October, Jesse. So the worry is that, you maybe sign him to, say, a 4 or 5 year deal, and then you get him till he's like 33, and then he maybe has a steep decline after the age of 30. But I don't think DeBrusk is going to really decline that much. He is definitely well established, and I think if you get him for the right price, it could actually make a lot of sense as a kind of bridge guy that helps the Canadiens become a bit more competitive, and maybe a guy you sign cheaper at the other end of that contract as they're really in their compete now mode.
Yeah, and getting some vets is really good too, right? And I feel like this Montreal Canadiens team, this very young Montreal Canadiens team, has shown a lot to Kent Hughes this year, right? And for that reason, it's almost like you want to reward that young team. You kind of want to enable them to really take that next sort of step forward. So I think it's okay. Like one of our next pieces, it might require something a little bit more, whether it's a trade, whether it's a free agent signing, right? But I think that's okay. Like it's okay for us to give us a little bit more in trade because now we're being even more selective. We know even more what this team really needs to take them to the next level, right? And you're looking at Jake DeBrusk looking for a team to really be built in the playoffs, that definitely be adding a vet, to the group, right? And if you look at him, extremely consistent throughout his career. He's, plays pretty close to 80 games, every year. And if he's there playing, he's going to get not just 20s, but high, mid 20s, 27, it's pretty good, pretty good output for sure from him, right? While we know obviously contributing to just overall winning hockey, which I think is the caveat. We want to bring in that goal scorer, right? But not to sacrifice really that all-around play, right? So I think that this is going to be a very interesting player as he's going to need to sign something soon here.
So, yeah, that's the thing. I see people in chat saying, hey, DeBrusk is not the answer. They need someone better. And I agree. He's not the answer. And I don't think we're proposing Jake DeBrusk as this solution to Montreal's lack of forward depth. But I think he could be a step. Goal scoring is the most expensive thing on the free agency market basically every year. And Jake DeBrusk, like you said, Jesse, 27 goals. The 2 seasons where he has 27 goals, he barely played 65 games, 64, I think, in one season, 68 in another. He's at 30-ish goal pace for 3 or 4 seasons in his career. And having that kind of talent, it's not easy to just walk into a 30-goal scorer that can just add to your roster right now. So no, he's not a solution, But I think if you get him again at the right price tag, having that kind of guy is super valuable, especially for a team like Montreal who lost, I think, the most one-goal games in the NHL this season. Imagine if you added just a 25-30 goal scorer, you just plug them into this Habs lineup. How many more games do they win? I know it's not as simple as that, but I think that I feel like sometimes people might underrate just how important a 25 goal guy is. You can't just walk into them. And while I definitely agree with people saying that, hey, you need that game breaker on Montreal, you can't just go trading for those guys either, Jesse. They don't just show up on your doorstep to trade for. And when a UFA that's a 25 goal scorer shows up, then I think you got to take it. But before I let you answer that, sorry, Denis Ronget, thank you so much, channel member. Give Denis some love. His first super chat on the stream. He's been here week after week. You can see his channel member badge. Let's give some for all our channel members that are here in the chat. I don't know how many we have. Let's give a little Kirby and some Slafzilla emojis, which you can only send as a channel member to Denis in the chat. Thank you so much. He just says best show, guy. Best show, guys. Thanks. Well, thanks to you, Denny. Really amazing. Jesse, maybe your thoughts on that. And am I crazy for saying that adding someone like a Jake DeBrusk is very important?
Well, obviously he's proving his worth right now. If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think if you're kind of taking out a Matthews, a Marner, or a Nylander, and you're plugging in a Jake DeBrusk in one of those spots, you're probably looking at a different output, of this whole series, right? That's how much of a game changer it is of just contributing to the game in so many different ways, right? But it's so true. Like Kent Hughes is literally going to need to pry out a young star from another team, like a Byfield, something else, and that might be a big give. Or it's going to have to be some type of big trade to really take us over the top. You have to feel, though, that Ken is really going to need to pay if we're to take that next level. That's just the question, is it right now? But I would almost prefer that if we're going to go for our next move, go big or go home, right? Because our top six, we got a lot of good players, but it's starting to get tight, right?
True.
You want to maximize those spots as much as possible. So it's interesting to see as we approach this spot, who's going to really be the best fit there.
Yeah, that's true. And valuing goal scoring versus amount you pay versus cap space, it all means different things. But that's a very good point. But Jesse, we got another super chat. We got so much going on here. We got Ivman, I think is how you probably pronounce that. Let me know if I got that right. But he said the Habs need more scoring. Hello from a diehard fan living in Las Vegas. And hey, we couldn't agree more, Jesse. That's what this whole thing is about. Adding scoring is the #1 need for the Montreal Canadiens. It's what Kent Hughes said in his end of season press conference. It's what the Habs are going to aim to do this summer. And maybe Jake DeBrusk isn't the answer. Maybe you guys are right. Maybe a big game-breaking trade. I still see Zegras rumors. Of course, the Basu and Godin podcast, we didn't prepare this, Jesse. I'm just going to say, they were proposing trades for Zegras. One of them said Reinbacher 1-for-1, and I think the other one was something like Anderson partially. I know. I think that might have been Godin. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I don't want to get it wrong. But regardless. But you had one offer there was Anderson, I believe half retained, Logan Mailloux, and the Winnipeg first for Zegras. Someone I know you're not sold on Zegras, but we got another super chat actually. Okay, I'll let you answer that and then we'll get to that super chat. But what are your thoughts on maybe something like that? Which one of those two would you prefer?
Right. For me, I just don't know if Zegras really fits, and we need the goal scorer, right? But I don't think we want to sacrifice on the culture, which I think is proven to be so valuable to this team. I think Logan Mailloux is going to be an amazing player in the NHL. For sure, he needs to round out his defensive game, but this guy can contribute offensively as well. I want to see what he can do as a Montreal Canadien.
Yeah, there's of those two. I mean, honestly, if the Ducks offered Zegras for Mailloux and we can get rid of Anderson and the Winnipeg first, I'd probably take that in a heartbeat. Not gonna lie. Just because of the value, but I also agree with you, Jesse. I don't think Zegras is a guy we need to hunt out, but we got to get to the super chat. Our #1 fan, and they are there every single stream. The consistent donations. Angie Antolina is not only the best show, best hosts ever. Loving your energy, guys. Well, that's what we aim to do. Thank you so much, Angie. Thank you to everyone leaving these chats. This energy, it's what we love to bring to the Canadiens fan base, right, Jesse? It's that positivity, and we love when you guys get excited with us, right? There's a lot of negativity out there in the hockey world. Not going to name names or anything, and a lot of people do a great job of staying positive and trying to get people excited for the team. But what we love, especially about you guys, the fans, and Angie again in that message really highlighting it, is we just love sharing the positivity. If we can get excited about the team, even about little things, I think it just adds a lot. It adds a lot to the community, right? And we just love doing it.
No, absolutely. And I think we're right in being optimistic about this team and where it's going. Like, to be honest, every time I hear Kent Hughes speak, I'm just like, yeah, yes, sir. Just keep speaking. Because I know that this is such a smart hockey mind, right? I just feel like we're headed in such an amazing direction. And I don't want to disrespect any former management and everything else, but I think it's just such a breath of fresh air. I think it's very clear where this organization is going, how they're building. I love the head coach, these young players that we're having. I think we're really building towards something really special. We've been right to be excited about players like Slav, and they just rewarded us for this way, right? We saw something, right? I think we're right to be optimistic and we're right to be positive about this team.
Yep, it is what it is. So, like, yeah, guys, I think a lot of you guys agree with that sentiment, which is why you're here. Jesse, we got 330 people in the stream right now. So I just wanted to say thank you for every single one of you here. And a reminder that we're here every single Monday at 6:15 p.m. Eastern. And special next week, Jesse, draft lottery is Tuesday. We will be live Monday preparing for the draft lottery. And we will be live during the draft lottery on Tuesday. We don't know the time yet, I don't believe, but it has been confirmed to be May 7th. So be here Monday and Tuesday if you want to get some live reactions to the Habs results in the draft lottery. Thank you guys very much. But Jesse, let's move on to another player in that article. I know we spent a lot of time on Jake DeBrusk. We'll move on from Jake DeBrusk. We're going to move on just briefly to Anthony Duclair because I am not totally sold on Anthony Duclair. He is just under 30 years old, but he had a 24-goal season this year in 73 games, and he had 15 points with 8 goals in just 17 games for the Lightning. We're going to bring him up here on HockeyDB, which is obviously, well, it's my favorite. I like Hockey Reference as well. But Anthony Duclair, 8 goals, 7 assists for 15 points in 17 games with the Lightning. Of course, he has some great pedigree, 30 goals just 2 years ago for the Panthers, 10 goals in 43 games a year before that. He's that kind of 20, 30 goal scorer, and one of those guys that just seemingly always goes for cheap. I know he's a not Montreal, Pointe-Claire native. He's a Quebec guy. I mean, maybe it could work. He's a UFA, but I don't see him as anything more than one of those guys that maybe you sign for a couple of years if you need some scoring. I don't see him as a long-term guy that you sign. I'm not sold on bringing in Duclair as like an offensive solution, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and the thoughts of everyone else in the comments down below.
I'm not sold, but I've thought about it.
Me too.
You know, even over the course of this past year, we've seen, right, those 15 points, in those 17 games, right, under the right circumstances. This guy, he can produce, and he's a guy that's got wheels. You feel like that would fit really well in the kind of up-tempo hockey that we like to play, right? But if you do really kind of examine his career, I think the one issue would kind of be the lack of consistency. Of course, you see some very good seasons scoring 30-plus goals and everything else like that. But you see a couple gaps there as well and everything else like that. So I think that's the one thing, Otherwise, if there was just that consistency there with the speed, former Quebec Rampart player, otherwise, I think it would be a good fit. But alas, I don't think that this one's really meant to be.
No, I don't think so either. And I think people saying nah. And I see Pointe-Claire's in Montreal, but I know like it's very similar, but you never know. You never know what. Maybe there's some people from Pointe-Claire here saying no. You're gonna call it. You never know. Just saying. Oh, Jesse, we got another super chat from. Oh, we're gonna be rich. It's from Planko. €2. That's like $300. We always make that joke. It's never going to get old, is it? No, thank you so much, Planko. You're here every single time. From Slovakia. Ahoy, guys. I think Marchessault is what the Habs need. Well, since you left the super chat, the €2, give a like to Planko. Give a like on the stream for Planko for donating euros, which is just amazing. Thank you so much. Why don't we take a look at Marchessault, Jesse? I know it's a guy that we've talked a lot about, and he's a guy that I'm going to bring up right now. My only concern with Jonathan Marchessault is that he is absolutely on the wrong side of 30. He's 33 years old, but of course coming off a 42-goal season, 3 points in 3 games in the playoffs so far. Conn Smythe last year for the Vegas Golden Knights. He's been extremely consistent for the last 7 years. In fact, he's arguably just improved almost every single year. But you never know with guys this age. And a guy that's also only 5'9", he's quite small on a team that's already quite small. And you never know when that production is just going to drop off a cliff. So I would be very scared to sign him to anything more than maybe a 3-year deal. I love the idea that he just brings an immediate 30-goal, 40-goal offensive punch to the team. But I can't help but worry about the downsides.
for me, there's three important things that you want to consider when looking for our next player for the Montreal Canadiens. And again, it's okay to be picky, I think, when we're trying to really figure this out. But I think the most important thing first is you got to have the goal scoring, there for sure. That's going to be so important. You want to have a winner as well, secondly. And then also, for me, what I find is really important for me is this, do they fit the culture of this team? And I think a lot of ways for Jonathan Marsh, so you can check all three of these boxes, and again, so it's very interesting player to consider, right? We know he's there in the playoffs when it really matters. It's okay to really want that best possible player, and maybe, okay, if we're going to go big, does it make sense to maybe go for like a younger goal scorer, right? But I think it's kind of rare sometimes when you can get a player that can fit those three type of things like that and still be kind of available to you. And I think it's important to take advantage of those situations. So whether that's Jonathan Marshall, whether that's another player, as long as they're filling those three categories, which for me is huge. And thank you, Ponko. I actually really like this suggestion. I really like this player. Obviously, again, a winner, right? He's there when it matters. So, I think this is going to be very interesting to consider as we move forward. If we're able to do like a shorter deal, if in a magical world we're able to get him on a 2-year type of deal, I feel like that would just be a best case scenario.
Yeah, and again, it would just do nothing but help, especially if Montreal wants to jump into that playoff picture. I actually see a comment there. By the way, guys, we're going to try and read comments. As you can tell, we read donations and channel members in priority, so we try to read some other ones as well, but that's just unfortunately the way it is with so many comments. See someone saying, someone said that if we get Celebrini, we're jumping a year of the rebuild. Do you guys think so? Well, I think if we get Celebrini and then you bring in a guy like Marshall, so like Celebrini's NHL ready already. Like, you get that star power right away. Now, I'm not, that's putting a ton of pressure on a guy. Like, if he were to go to Montreal, you got to be good right away. But I think he's shown enough to show, like, this dude's young. Like, he won the Hobey Baker when he was still 17, the youngest winner ever. Like, he's insane. So yes, I think that's skipping a year of the rebuild. I think they go all in then for trades and looking for longer term stuff. Maybe a short term Marchessault is something you could maybe do. As Blanco says, 3 years for $4 million to end his career in Canada. I don't know if he'd retire at 36, but it's not a ridiculous offer. I just don't think he'd take $4 million. I mean, his market value is more than that. Contending teams that can work their way around the cap. Vegas, why not come back? Anyway, they can find a way to squeeze him in, I think, for maybe a higher price. And I see Denis saying, as a directeur general, I'll offer a lot for first pick to get Celebrini. Example, 2 good defensemen, 2 first-round pick, and any young player like Joshua Roy. You got a point, Denis. I think if there's any way you can trade for Celebrini, I think you will. Jesse, maybe just a quick note on that. I don't see the team winning the lottery giving up the rights to Celebrini. It's ridiculous. I don't think Montreal has anything bar like their absolute best prospects, like someone like a Reinbach or Slafkovsky, Caufield, or even like Suzuki. Like, these are the kind of guys you're going to be asked to give away for Celebrini. I just don't see a world where it happens, unfortunately.
True, right? But we do have a chance, thankfully, finishing fifth. We got a fighting chance at winning this. We know, Josh, you've been super lucky when it comes to this. And I think we're right to talk about Macklin Celebrini. I think we should even be speaking about him a little bit more, considering the amazing chemistry that Macklin has had with Lane Hutson at their time, playing in the NCAA together on the same team. These guys work amazing together. Just imagine, we would just need to do anything we could to get these two players together, because the way that they're able to feed off each other, it was instant chemistry, even with Macklin being such a tremendously young player, right? Like, with the way that they were able just to really just work together with the puck was just something to see. Just imagine them in Montreal. You would just have instant chemistry right away. That would just be absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, our boy Macklin, it would be so unreal. Just going to bring up his Hockey DB page for you guys again, in case you didn't know just how good this guy was. 46 goals in 50 games in the USHL at the age of 16. And then with Boston University, 32 goals, 32 assists in 38 games. Again, he's not even 18 yet. Like, he is, he's not going to be 18 until June. And this guy's putting up these unbelievable, mind-boggling stat lines. Yes, I know he's not as good of a prospect as Connor Bedard, but he is not that far away. Macklin Celebrini is a really, really good player. But again, I don't think you're going to be able to get him feasibly with what the Habs have to give up. But Jesse, I'd like to transition to another prospect that we've talked a bit about. and that's Cole Eiserman. Now, Cole Eiserman, if you guys have been following the under-18 tournament, I don't know if he's still the goals leader in the tournament, but he was. He is showing that he has an unbelievable goal-scoring ability pretty much everywhere he goes. I know the questions are there about maybe literally everything else in his game, but that goal-scoring ability is something that I think is probably shooting him up the rankings. You know, every single team scout is at this under-18 tournament. All eyes on, well, probably Gavin McKenna, but also on Cole Eiserman, because he's a guy who has a lot of question marks around him. But I think that Cole Eiserman might just be moving up the draft after this tournament because his goal scoring has been phenomenal.
Yeah, a lot of rumors about him and the Montreal Canadiens, a lot of question marks. But at this tournament here, he's basically answering all of them by lighting up the lamp. And if we know the Montreal Canadiens love one thing, it's a late riser, right? And kind of being able to produce when it really matters a little bit more. I almost think it's an underrated thing as the draft sort of approaches and these positions aren't quite set in stone, that pressure kind of has an effect on these players and which players can really rise to the occasion and continue to climb up and which kind of fall down, right? It's kind of been a case for Eiserman of a little bit of both, right? Climbing up for a lot of earlier on the year, he was considered almost the second overall pick here above Demidov, everything else. He kind of fell off a cliff. And now he's kind of starting to climb back, right? It's really interesting. Obviously, goal scoring would be an amazing check. It's just the compete. And I think it's fair to bring up your point from earlier, Josh. We bring it up with players trading, but also with who we'd be bringing in. It's the Marty St. Louis effect, right? Where it's almost a player you might give up on and say, oh, we can never turn around this player to make him play an all-around game. You have to feel like Martin St. Louis could find a way to communicate to this player in a way that plays to their instincts, to the reading the game where, you know, they're playing that defensive game without even knowing it, right? The way that they're reacting and really just benefiting their overall game, right? So I think that's so interesting notice. And I think that the Montreal Canadiens are thinking about exactly this.
Yeah, and like as you guys just saw, he's the leading goal scorer. That was the under-18 World Tournament so far. In 3 games, 6 goals. No one else has more than 4. He's a guy that I think you really could turn into something good, right? And I believe he's committed to Boston College, Boston University. I think it's Boston University, right? Actually, I can't remember now. It's one of the Boston ones, but regardless, like there's a lot of growth that'll still be able to be seen in Cole Eiserman's game. So 5th overall, not sure, but you never really know because there's a lot of factors that go into this stuff, but he's really good. We also saw Tij Iginla there with 3 goals in 3 games, really good. Jesse, there's one guy here. This is just a little tangent because I was looking at this guy earlier. I just wanted to bring this up. I mean, look, this is not even for this draft. This is complete tangent. So stick with me here because we're looking towards next year. I don't know where he's going to end up going, but Porter Martone. I don't know if you guys have looked much at Porter Martone. He had 33 goals and 38 assists in 60 games in the OHL this year. And he's barely 17. He's also 6'2". I believe Hockey DB has him at 6'3". So some places saying he's 6'2", between 6'2 and 6'3". He only turns 18 in October. And he just had that kind of year in the OHL. Just wanted to say, I really like this guy. But Jesse may be more impressive as well. Tij Iginla, he's a guy that we've been talking about a lot. Maybe not more impressive than Porter Martone, but 3 goals in 3 games. That's what we wanted to see. We wanted to see him have a big tournament, and I feel like he's another one of those guys that's just climbing and climbing and climbing. And he's been one of the Habs targets. I'm sure they've interviewed him, and I'm starting to get sold on him after watching him, Jesse. I can't lie to you. I know like 5, if that's where Montreal ends up picking, might be high for him objectively, but I'm just falling in love with his game. And I can just, you ever get that feeling where you just watch a guy and you're like, I just want him on my team. Like I can visualize him fitting with this team. It's a weird thing. It's intangible, but I feel it with Tij Iginla. I don't know if any of you guys feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to feel that way about a player for sure. It's like Kent Hughes recently said too, like we know talent's really important, but I think that Kent Hughes has made a really good observation in noting that more physicality is also needed for this team as well. That's something that's really important. Again, I think his eyes are towards the playoffs and kind of, again, that larger plan, that larger play at mind. So I feel like this is a player that, again, really fits into that, winning those puck battles, being able to play that playoff style of hockey we know in the Western Hockey League, right? It's basically playoff hockey all the time there, right? So it's a great breeding ground to get players that are ready for that time of year, right? So I think he does fit. Again, he is a good combination if you do think about it, exactly what Kent was saying about both the talent and then also the physicality.
Yeah, there's so much to love about him. I know Kaden Lindstrom is a lot of people's picks. Don't know about the injury concerns. I wouldn't be concerned personally, but I'm not a doctor and I'm not a scout. I don't really know what's going on. But there's a good chance he's gone before Montreal's pick, so I think Tij could be good. I think that's pretty much it for the prospect talk, Jesse. Unless there was someone else that you wanted to talk about, any other prospect. There's a lot of prospect stuff. Anyone else you wanted to bring up while we're all on that subject?
3 players: Macklin, Demidov, Lindstrom.
Okay. All right. So we kind of went over Macklin. I think it's time we go over Demidov because he's a guy that actually we haven't gone over a whole lot. I'm going to bring up his elite prospects page here. And we're going to go through this together because he's a guy that it's not that I'm not sold on him because there's a reason he's ranked like number 2 everywhere, right? Like he's good, right? 2 on the consolidated ranking. He's actually ranked lowest by Bob McKenzie at number 6, which is interesting because that's the list I trust the most. But when we take a look at his production, no thanks. I already did that quiz and I got 100%. Leave me alone. 60 points in 30 games in the NHL, 23 goals in 30 games. Jesse, this guy has unbelievable production. You can't, it's actually cut off a little bit. I apologize, guys, but hey, we'll leave it there. Unbelievable production. He looks like he's a man playing against boys in that league. I know Demidov, like, I want to see him play in the KHL. Like, I want to see him against that better competition. That's the one thing that worries me. Like, how will it translate some of these dangles and stuff? But good players learn how to adapt their moves in better leagues. So I think I shouldn't be as scared as I am. But like realistically, if the Habs have a chance to get him, I know he's like, what, 5'11". He's not the biggest guy. He has all the skill in the world. I don't know. I feel like I prefer Lindstrom, but maybe I'm crazy. I think I'm just one of those weird outliers on this one.
Imagine the return of Kovalev 2.0 to the Montreal Canadiens, but even better. But get this, he also back checks, and also playing that 200-foot game, as well. And that's what I find interesting about him, right? Because so many oftentimes, right, it's like Russian players, they get that bad rap of, okay, offensive dynamo, but is that complete game there as well? And for me, that makes Demidov so interesting to me. It's like, the silky smooth hands. Do yourself a favor, check out a highlight packet of this player, but he's there to compete and pay attention to the details of the game, the non-negotiables that we know are so important for Marty St. Louis, right? So just absolutely unreal shot, unreal talent. I think, depending on where we fall, if we're not able to get a Macklin Celebrini, I would definitely take this as a consolation prize.
Yeah, for sure. And hey, and if he does drop, like someone in chat said, Kaden Lindstrom probably won't be there. Like, I think there's a real chance, even if Montreal doesn't move up in this draft, that one of Demidov or Lindstrom could be there, especially with like around the league, the demand for an elite defenseman is always there. And with the sheer amount of talented defensive prospects in this draft, some guys could easily jump into that top 2 or 3, leaving one of Lindstrom or Demidov to fall to Montreal. And Lindstrom, Jesse, we've spoken a lot about him. 6'3", big, 6'3", 6'4". I think he's 6'3". Big guy, loves to use his body. Has said himself he loves to cut to the middle of the ice. He has that scoring touch. He is a phenomenal player. Again, not one of those guys that is projected to make an impact right away, but he's very similar to Slav on a lot of draft rankings. People saying that kind of talent is there. I think Lindstrom long-term is going to look like one of the best players out of this draft. That's something we're seeing. We're seeing bigger players getting more and more skilled as the years go on. I know you love him too. I think he might just be the consensus pick for Montreal. Like, assuming we don't jump up to number 1, I feel like he is the guy that we see the most of fans talking about. I'm actually going to put a poll up while you mention your love for Kaden Lindstrom as well.
Yeah, right. Most likely will fall into that range. I would say probably the most likely target. And I'm very, very happy with that. And I think it's a great point, Josh. It's almost a blessing in disguise that you could say, even though we're picking 5th overall, that there are so many defensemen that are ranked so high in this draft, because it's really going to allow possibly a really good offensive player to kind of drop to us right now. Obviously, we're still going for that number 1 spot. We're definitely looking for that lottery kind of coming up, right? But in terms of likeliest scenarios, right? Kaden Lindstrom is there. He seems to really fit in to what we're looking for, and again with the physicality that Kent Hughes is looking for. Obviously, a big part of physicality is size, which Kaden Lindstrom really provides, I think, which a lot of Montreal Canadiens rightfully are looking for as additions for this team going forward, which I, for one, would love to see.
Yeah, me too. And it seems like the fans would love to see Kaden Lindstrom as well, Jesse. I just tossed up the poll. Everyone there, go vote on that poll. And while you're voting on the poll, hit like on the stream. We got 350 people in here, and we want to see those like numbers go up. 145, we can get that to 200. We need 55 of you. We need less than a sixth of you in here. One in every 60 if you could hit the like button. Press the button, number go up. And it helps us. What is there to lose? Kaden Lindstrom, Jesse, so far with 45 votes in this poll, as I'm saying this, 56% of the vote. We got Demidov, Lindstrom, Iginla, and Kaiden. 54% say Lindstrom, 40% say Demidov, and the rest is split between Iginla and Kaiden. So it seems like you're onto something. People, now, Demidov's kind of climbing up, but Lindstrom seems to be the preferred guy. We're gonna let that ride for a little bit there. But yeah, I think a lot of people are saying it's really tough there. And Joel's Matrix says, what about Berkeley Kaiden? We got Berkeley Kaiden in there in that poll as well. I think people are just not as high on him as some of these other guys, even though he's incredibly, incredibly skilled. Jesse, I feel like we're coming towards the end of the stream, but we're not done yet. There's one thing that I think we wanted to talk about just briefly, because it seems like, as of late, not just Habs fans, not just Leafs fans, but every hockey fan wants to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs, and we feel like we'd be giving you guys a disservice to not take a moment for you guys to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I know how much Montreal Canadiens fans loves to talk about Leafs fans and their team. And I know there's probably going to be comments if Leafs fans see this, they say, oh, live in your head rent-free. Well, no, it's just that it gets shoved down my throat in the media every single day. So, hey, and you know what? It's doing well on YouTube, and we like to do well on YouTube. Why would we not talk about it? This is hilarious, Jesse. I know we talked a lot about Mitch Marner as a potential signing next year. I no longer want to. It's that crazy to say after, I know we've seen so many series of him doing kind of the same stuff, but after that little bench tantrum, I feel like I don't want Marner. And again, I'm not attacking Marner's character. I don't think he's like a bad guy or anything. I'm just saying purely from the actions I've seen on the ice as a fan, he's a much better hockey player than me. He has much more money than me. He's great. Mitch Marner's fine. I like Mitch Marner. I'm just saying that based on what I've seen, I don't think I'd want to sign him to a big contract if he becomes a free agent, Jesse. I mean, I think the one guy on this Leafs team, people are crapping on him, but William Nylander has shown maybe the most heart. We saw it when he played against the Habs. We've been talking about potential situations where he lands on the Habs. I feel like he's the only guy on this team that I can really say, like, this guy really gives a crap, even that not all the time, but I don't know. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on the Leafs? And I'm sure the chat's gonna go all in as well.
Well, I definitely like to see Nylander, kind of playing a little, of course, it's hard to know with their injuries and stuff like that. We've just seen, tales in the past. We've seen players battle it out, through broken feet, broken hands, everything short of that, right? You got to feel like you just got to be there this time of year, right? And we're not trying to, talk down on the Leafs or anything like that. Like, part of me, wants to see them, do a little bit better, right? But I was watching that game the other night, and it's just like, you expect so much. Like Saturday night, the bright lights are on, the history. It's like, if you're Matthews, you got to be showing up. And I'm watching this game and just being a non-factor on the ice. Now we know that there's some illnesses and everything else. It's just, man, as the owner of that team, wouldn't you just be so upset as a general manager? There's so much that goes into nutrition and everything else, and it's right there for your most important game. It just seems like those issues, just shouldn't have really come up. Now, maybe it's something other than food poisoning, they're saying now, because it's really kind of last and really went on. But as for myself, I don't want, Marner. I don't want Nylander. I don't want Matthews, because that's a long track record, right? Where it's like, you're being put in a position to win. You got all the players around you, but you're not able to do it when it really matters the most, right? You have to feel at some point that they would have taken it a little bit more personally than they have, right? And I think for Marner, it wasn't just that one moment of being on the bench. And again, you can never do that in front of your opposition. That's just like blood in the water for the Sharks, showing that division amongst yourself like that. But just many times with Marner, you could just see the frustration on his face just during the game. And again, you don't want to show that. You want to keep your composure as much as possible. Just never let your head down, kind of no matter what, right? And we kind of saw that, right? So I think the writing is on the wall, and I think that outburst on the bench is just symbolic of all of that.
If they get eliminated, Chris Johnston, who pretty much every year has said Leafs are going to run it back, he's always been the first one to report it. This year he's saying this could very well be the end. And when he says it, I kind of tend to believe it. Elliot Friedman said the same thing. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Leafs on a Habs channel, because again, like, it just feels almost cheap in a way, but I feel like just with the sheer amount of Habs fans talking about it, it'd be a disservice not to. I just want to say this. when Montreal eventually ends up competing, I don't envision a world where those bench outbursts like we saw, these conflicts between players. And I know there's sicknesses. Matthews has an illness. Nylander may have migraines. We're not sure. It's not confirmed. There's a lot of stuff going on. But these little bench things, Nylander saying that to Marner throwing his glove, Matthews just not really showing up, these guys not putting in that kind of effort, watching the puck get stripped from them by guys like Jake DeBrusk, who could be a future Hab, maybe not. But this kind of thing, like, I don't envision a world where this Montreal team with this core ends up acting like that. These guys feel like they play for each other. They are brothers inside and out. They are going out there fighting for each other, fighting for their coach, for their team, for success every single day, and they want to get better together. I saw some people say like the Tavares signing felt like a vanity signing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. It feels like these guys care more about their own numbers. And look, here's another thing too, Jesse. I'm scared to say anything else because what if they come back? Like, it's not crazy. This is a talented team. They should be better. That's the thing. They should be better. And there's a world where they come back from 3-1 and go on to beat the Bruins. I don't think it's going to happen, but there might be a world. So I'm not going to go too all in. I'm just saying, Jesse, I don't think with the players we have right now in Montreal that we will ever see something like we've been seeing from the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Exactly, because we're getting players that really want to compete. And I think that's the main thing when you're hearing this about Slaf, that it's always more about the team than himself. He cares more about the team doing well, right? We've seen where with the Toronto Maple Leafs, even going with contract negotiations, and there always just seems to be a little bit more of like an individualistic type thing. Like, I want to get my bag, and that's not necessarily what's the best for the team. Whereas it's not that vibe with the Montreal Canadiens. Now, I'm not trying to say that Juraj Slafkovsky is a better goal scorer than Austin Matthews, or that he even ever will be a better goal scorer than Austin Matthews. But I am saying that he absolutely has the opportunity to be a more effective hockey player on the overall outcome of a game, which I think is our responsibility as hockey analysts to really take that into consideration when we're really evaluating players and we're really making kind of assumptions of their value, right, to this team, right? So I think it's so funny that even if we go back to the COVID year, like this Montreal Canadiens team, because of the culture, you know, even under different management, but I would say more the culture of just being the Montreal Canadiens and that winning sort of environment, right, that they end up getting to a cup finals, right? And I think kind of obviously we're trying to rebuild, and obviously there was a lot going on to that season, right? But I think just with this type of team, if you can do that in an off season like that, just imagine when you're really building the right way to do a rebuild that has been a long time, you could say rightfully overdue, right? In retrospect, to really do the right way, I would say, or maybe done at the right time, but done in the right way, right? Thoroughly. So amazing what the future really holds. And again, always with the vision of players that want to win, that want to compete, that want to do it the most time. Like Alex Newhook, that's a player that can competes. You know, Nick Suzuki, that's a competitor for me. Juraj Slafkovsky, obviously. I think we're going to see a lot from our key players that really show that they want to win, and they'll sacrifice those individual things for the teams, you know, for the best output of the team.
Yeah, I love that spin, right? Turn it into something very positive for Montreal. That's going to be it for our Leafs talk. But yeah, very, very awesome. I building a team up the way Montreal is doing now is hard to do. That's the thing too, right? And we're almost lucky in a way to see what Kent Hughes and Jeff Gorton have done with this team and how the culture, like, how hard is it to build that kind of culture going into a rebuild? It almost never happens. We were blessed with a guy like Nick Suzuki, who's young and captain material, who's a natural born leader. A guy like Slafkovsky, who's so smart and charismatic. Caufield, fun guy, glue of the team. And just having all these guys buy in together is something that's so phenomenal for the future of the Montreal Canadiens. Isn't it funny though, Jesse, that we talked about the Leafs and the viewers peaked by about 20? And we stopped and it went down by about 20. That's what I'm saying, guys. People are brainwashed with the Toronto Maple Leafs. But yeah, no, that's what it is. But really, really excited for the future of the Montreal Canadiens. Guys, I think that's going to pretty much do it. So for right now, we're just going to give you your chance to like the stream one last time. Send your final comments. I'm going to try and read one or two. Again, if there's a donation or channel member, we're going to read that in priority. But I think that's going to pretty much do it, Jesse, within the next 5 or so minutes here. I'm just going to read one or two here. I see someone asking, is Arber's shoulder okay? Not yet, but it will be. Dude had surgery. He'll be all right before next season by all accounts. Stupid Blackhawks overpaying for Vlasic. I mean, I don't know if it was an overpay. I mean, it sort of was. I definitely Kaden Guhle has a bit of leverage there, Jesse. Kaden Guhle contract. Do we have a prediction for that or no? I feel like we kind of made our opinions known. What we're thinking somewhere around the $6 million value if Montreal is willing to sign it. Though I guess he can also just say Vlasic got that, and they might have to give him a bit more.
I think if we can get him for 4 or 5 years, I think you want to get him on term, just not the too much. I think 8 is still a lot.
Yeah.
6 is almost feels to me still a lot. It's a young player. He's good. But I think even Kaden Guhle would be the first one to say he's still got more to prove. He's still got more to show, right? So I think kind of maybe a 4-year deal where we're obviously making a commitment, when we want him part of this team, knowing full well he's going to grow into that next contract.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. I'm going to have a look here. Merci beaucoup, très intéressant. Merci beaucoup, Denis, pour être ici avec nous aujourd'hui. Yeah, just thank you so much for everyone here. And you know what, Jesse? Why don't we just end with some poetry here from Michael? I guess Michael, but there's an umlaut over the E. Michael Lamontagne. Some great poetry. What is love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. It's not really relevant to anything we were saying. I just thought it was interesting to say that. That'll do it for this stream. This episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the stream, comment, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate every single one of you. Over 300 people here for the stream today. Tune in next week, 6:15 p.m. Eastern, Monday night for another stream. And hey, Tuesday night for the draft lottery. One of the biggest nights of the entire summer coming up. We hope to see you there. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.